my senior project as a pencil drive for my uncle's school in Mazabuka, Zambia. And just so you know where I'm going with this presentation and I don't throw you for a loop, I'm going to start out telling you about my senior project and then go over the curriculum of Civitas and then finally tie it all back together. And I'm not one for a lot of words on the PowerPoint. You're going to see pictures and I'm going to explain to you what they are. So here's the national crest of Zambia. On the starter slide. Zambia is located in sub-Saharan Africa, so right below the Sahara Desert, and it's kind of landlocked, as you can see right there. And it's obviously very hard to ship things there, which I found out later in this project. Mazabuka is located in the southwesternmost province at the northeasternmost end. So as you will see right there, where Mazabuka is located, and this is Zambia divided into its 6 provinces. And here is the school that I raised school supplies for. It's called the CY Basic School, and this was kind of serendipitous, really. I had no idea this was going to be my presentation. I was going through my Gmail account one day, and I saw an email from my uncle, and it was just a picture of him with nuns and a bunch of little African students. And I didn't know what it was, so I emailed him back and I was like, explain to me. And he said that he wanted to get his good deed in for his life, and he'd retired from the police force in Ireland, and he'd gone back to Africa on a humanitarian mission with a few of his friends, and they met up with a religious organization, and they found themselves in Mazabuka. And they originally started building the school, and they gave all the startup money themselves, but the contractors there wanted to use bad materials and cut corners to make the money go into their pocket instead of these people's. So they had to deal with that and a bunch of other problems that they didn't expect. But here's just another picture. So in places like Zambia, a school is so much more than a place to come and learn. It's a healthcare center. It's a place where you get your general information. It is like the center of a community. Without a school, there really isn't a place where people can come and meet and collaborate and organize. And we take that for granted here because we have our school system and you can go down the street and there's, an educational establishment. But in countries like this, that's very, very rare. And it's spread out, and when you do get them, it's lucky, that's a province or county or place that has been greatly improved. And right here is this picture that I got in my email. That's my Uncle Tom over there. He looks a little disgruntled. It's probably the heat, There's Sister Celestine, the woman who worked with him and convinced him of this. And here are who's going to get my pencils. So the best way to gain pencils was through pizza parties, because when you're in elementary school, you live for the pizza party. Come on, there's nothing better than that. Free class time, free food. If you can convince teachers to do that, you got it made in the shade. And because of free pizza, I was able to raise over 3,500 pencils from Detterding Elementary alone. So that's a lot of pencils from one school. And not only did I go to Detterding, which is the school that I went to as an elementary school kid, but also from Rio. But unfortunately, high school kids get a little jaded, and by the time they get here, they're more concerned about themselves than they are about helping anybody else. But when you're a little kid, you have a pizza party to look forward to. And this project required me to go around and raise a lot of donations from people because it's hard to come up with 6,000 pencils by yourself. That's quite a chunk of change. But with the help of people like the Kiwanis Club, they made my life a lot easier. And this is the Kiwanis Family House Director of Sacramento. And if you guys aren't familiar with the Kiwanis Family House, it's a branch associated with the UC Davis Medical Center. And what they do is they provide a service of shelter for families who can't really afford a hotel right off the bat when they have an injured loved one that's transported to the UC Davis Medical Center. And so, inadvertently in this project, I got to see the works of the family house, and I thought I'd share that all with you because they provide a great service, and that was something that I was enlightened to. And we got $80 plus a few thousand pencils from these guys. So, thank you, Kiwanis Family House. Another great organization is the Lions Club of Sacramento. It's very similar to the Kiwanis Club. They kind of have a general aim of just community service and action, and they'll go after events that they think they can get a good turnout for and they can get a good response with the community. And this was just one of them. When I went to their meeting to sit down with them and receive this check, they were talking about, getting food baskets for the needy and a bunch of other projects. So I thought that was really, interesting. Office Max also donated 200 pencils, so thank you, Office Max. And when we got all of them, I decided to take an impact picture and just see oh, this is what we had. I dumped everything out. I ended up getting a whole lot more than just pencils because, you can't get the cart before the horse. And so during halfway through I decided, I should start accepting notebooks and pads and erasers and everything that goes along with it because why not? They're going back there anyways. And I ended up getting a really, really great innovation. You can't see it in this slide, and these are all of them counted, but right there's these little things called eco-books, and they're made of composite materials, and they're indestructible, and they're waterproof, and you can tear at them and try to break them all you want, but it doesn't work. And I got donated 60 of them from Miss Seibel here on campus, and those are one of the most brilliant things that I could have ever asked for because what's a better supply that you could send back there than a notepad that's reusable and indestructible? And so when I finally got all these pencils boxed up and ready to go and took them over to the post office, I was expecting a lot lower figure than I anticipated. So I go there, I take my picture of all these boxes, and I'm like, yes, I'm done with this project, finally. And I wait in line, and of course it's a long line, the holiday season. I get up there with all these boxes, and I put the first one on the weighing scale, and she's like, that'll be $311. You mean for all of them, right? No, so I ended up having to take those boxes back out and try to find another way. And that I did. I went online and I started looking up different ways to ship things. And I thought, what about those big box containers that go on ships? And I looked up a company called Transit Systems International, and for $310.25, they shipped all 80 pounds of my stuff back to Zambia, which would have otherwise cost over $1,000 going to the Postal Service. So I went from completely not being able to afford it to being able to pay for it with the donations that I'd raised already. So that was a great relief for me and for family in general. And so this was what I was talking about. This little eco book. You can get them at Staples, and they're pretty nifty. All right, I gave this presentation at my little sister's elementary school, which was my elementary school, and these were the results for who would win the pizza party. So they're not really relevant to here, but as you can see, Miss Hudson's class did win the pizza party. And overall, we raised 5,700 pencils, all these other supplies, 32 notebooks, 30 legal pads, 44 of those eco-book things, 183 erasers. And when you think about pencils and school supplies like that, they're generally small, but 6,000 pencils, that's enough to fuel a school. Rio has 2,000 kids, roughly, 1,600. That's 3 pencils per person off the top. And so for a school where there's only about 40 or 50 kids total, that's good for a few years. And now I'm going to transition to the second part of this because that was my senior project and that's what I did. But also, if it weren't for Civitas, I wouldn't have been doing this project. So I'm going to talk about the curriculum because Civitas is a really interesting program in the fact that you can't get this anywhere else. The classes that we offer here at Rio are not offered elsewhere. In high school, I challenge anybody to find an international relations course or the philosophy, the political thought course. Those are really, really unique and interesting classes, and because of those, I feel like I brought such a greater backing and a greater base of knowledge. So when you apply to Civitas, you have to go through an interview process. You sit down, you come into this room exactly, and you write an essay, and then you go next door and are interviewed. And as a little 8th grader, you're nervous and you're scared. You're like, these people are going to judge me, and am I going to be good enough? And usually if you come here with the intention of being in the program, you'll get in, and I did. And because of that, I was able to go through basic political science, state and local government, a speech class, which is coming in handy right now, and political philosophy. More so than any of the curriculum, Civitas focuses on community outreach, so the program expands beyond the classroom. We're not confined to Rio. If you think about it, each graduating class is about 30 seniors. Each one of those seniors had to do 100 hours of community service if they wanted to complete the program. On top of that, they each had to do a 75-hour internship and a senior project. So even if one person's project doesn't seem like it's having an impact, multiply that by 30, and that's what Civitas is doing every year with every single class they have. And so part of our curriculum is an internship. So I spent 75 hours with the I'll Be Better for Congress campaign, and I learned how to answer phones and knock on doors and basic political campaigning skills. And I thought that was really enlightening because you kind of got to see the grassroots of the American political process. Like, you can go out and you can talk to your neighbors and say, hey, look, this is what I think, and I think you should think this too, because. And if they're going to give you the time, you can explain it to them, and maybe you can convert a few. But getting out and talking to people face to face has a much greater impact than any other form of communication. Like, you can douse an area with pamphlets, you can call people all you want, but you don't get the same response as you do when you go knock on somebody's door and look them in the eye and have that human contact. And I'm not done quite yet. I'm going to tie Civitas back to my project, because I spent time in international relations, and I thought, what do I want to do after high school? What career paths do I want to pursue? And I was never really too interested by local or state politics, but I always loved, reading the news about the world. And it was just serendipitous the way that this opportunity came along, and I took advantage of it. And if it wasn't for Civitas's curriculum, I wouldn't have been given the basic knowledge that I had to go and pursue that. I remember the very, very, very first day of Civitas. We all walked into the room, and the first thing Mr. did was make us go outside, and she drew a line, and it was the political spectrum. And on the first day of class, we had to go and stand where we thought our political beliefs were. And of course, being 14 years old or 15 years old coming into high school, our political beliefs were our parents' political beliefs. And so we have this line, and we have a bunch of kids go all the way over to the left and all the way over to the right, and a few kind of scattered throughout the middle. And then the kids kind of didn't find the line, and But so by the end of Civitas, we know where we are at that point in that line, or if we even agree with that line in general. It opens us up to so many different forms of thought and belief. These are ideas that we wouldn't have been exposed to if we just gone through the regular high school process. We wouldn't have read the same literature. We wouldn't have been given the opportunity to listen to the same speakers. And this is something that you've probably heard from every single other student who's come up and said this, but this is the real impact of Civitas. It's the expansion of knowledge beyond what is confined to the general high school educations. And I think that's why Civitas is great, and I think that's why this program is really beneficial and is a great aspect of Rio Americana. So.
Very nice. Okay, we're open for questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about working for the Mara campaign and how important it is to have that human contact. We hear a lot nowadays about our society being polarized. Did you find that people were willing to spend time and talk to you and listen to you?
Generally, people would close the door, honestly, when you go up and you knock and you hand them their pamphlet. They've already made up their minds and decided. But those few people that are willing to listen to you, that's when you have your chance to make a difference. Because in that moment, that's your opportunity to convert them. That's your opportunity to give them your spiel, and you have them there. So if they're there and they're willing to listen to you, you gotta grab it and go for it and own it, because if you don't, you just lose that. And when you check your email and see vote for this candidate, or you get a letter in the mail, you just throw it away. You can delete it, but you can't delete a person standing right in front of you. I mean, you could, but that's not something you want to do.
Are you hoping at some point you can go to the school?
Yes, that would be amazing. Like, I've been stressed with college apps and doing all that, so I hadn't given it much thought, but that'd be an interesting journey to go all the way back there. I mean, sub-Saharan Africa is a pretty difficult place to access, as is noted by the shipping rates. But, yeah, like, I've gone back to Ireland a bunch of times with my family because our entire family is from Ireland, and I've had the opportunity to go to some places in Europe, but I've never really had an opportunity to go to places like Zambia, the third world, and I think that'd be an enlightening experience, and I'll travel when I can.
Do you think you want to be involved in international affairs of some kind later in life?
I hope so. I want to go to college and see what I really, really enjoy first. I like writing, and I love discussing politics, and those are things that I've kind of found my niche in because I'm not a numbers guy, which, you know, it's kind of unfortunate because most politicians are going to end up being numbers guys, and that's why we have a deficit and all these problems. So maybe we should have a few more of those, but I think that would be a dream job, being able to have any influence on international relations with any countries. I mean, not too many people ever get an opportunity to influence world events like that, so